So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy Ellen. I'm back, and today, man, we checking out people of this tribe violate all the laws of physics, man. So we're getting into tribes today. One of my favorite tribes to read up and check out is Sentinelese, man. I had an Amazon interview from Joe Rogan to react to that I reacted to, man, but it got blocked. So, and they were talking about the Sentinelese and Sentinelese and the different tribes, man, how, you know, when they showed up there, you know, how they didn't have a lot of medical, you know, and how they performed on people who had like maybe asthma or wingworms or different things that they obtained, and how they were so happy to see the Americans show up and allowed the Americans to perform like different, you know what I'm saying, do different things to help them medically. But unfortunately, that video was blocked. So we're going to check this one out. If you're new to the channel, man, hit that subscribe button, join the fam, and let's check it out.
It's amazing to think that while most of the world is living on TikTok and Zoom, there are still people out there living in tribes, which are sometimes pretty much unchanged for thousands of years. You have to be tough to live in a tribe, and if you're the kind of person who cries about things people say on Twitter, you might not fit in. From the badass African warriors to the most isolated tribe on Earth, here's the 20 toughest tribes that are feared by the US Army. Number 20. Maasai. Northern, central, and southern Kenya, as well as northern Tanzania, are home to the Maasai, a Nilotic ethnic group. Due to their location near the various wildlife parks of the African Great Lakes, as well as their peculiar customs and attire, they are among the most well-known indigenous people in the world. The Maasai speak the Maha language, which is connected to the Dinka Kalenjin and belongs to the Nilotic language family. Except
now, that was the one thing that I heard in the interview as well. I'm gonna keep referring to that interview since I can't put it out. Was some of the tribes they visited, they adapted another tribe or another country's native language. They didn't even know their own native language. You know what I'm saying? And they figured it out and was, you know, speaking that fluently, you know. It's just fascinating to hear the different things, how they're able to adapt. He even went as far as to talk about their feet, how their feet had adapted to being able to climb trees. It looked totally different than ours, how their feet had sprawled out. And look, man, it's just...
For a few elderly persons in remote regions, most Maasai people speak Swahili and English, the official languages of Kenya and Tanzania. The Maasai population in Kenya was estimated to be 1,189,522 in the 2019 census, up from 377,089 in the 1989 census. The Maasai are monotheists who worship a single god, known as Engai or Engai. Engai has two personalities, the beneficent Engai Narok and the vindictive Engai Nanyoki. The lion is also the totemic animal for the Maasai. The Maasai kill the lion in a different way than trophy hunters because it is utilized in a rite of passage ritual. Some people say that people of this tribe violate all the laws of physics, but maybe that's just a myth. One frequent misunderstanding about the Maasai is that before a young man may be circumcised and achieve maturity, he must kill a lion. Lion hunting was formerly a popular pastime in East Africa, but it is now prohibited, despite the fact that lions are still slaughtered when they prey on Maasai cattle. Killing a lion, on the other hand, confers fame and high status in Maasai society. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification.
Could you imagine everything we've heard about a lion has made us fear them because they've been hailed as king of the jungle. But in order for you to become a man, you gotta go out there and wow.
Bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Number 19. North Sentinelese. The Sentinelese, also known as the Sentinelese, or North Sentinel Islanders, are a people who live on North Sentinel Island, in the Bay of Bengal, in the northern Indian Ocean. They are classified as a particularly vulnerable tribal group, and they are part of the Andamanese peoples as a whole. The Sentinelese appear to have constantly shielded away from contact with the rest of the world, which seems pretty smart. They have even slain several who have attempted to land or approach the island. North Sentinel Island was proclaimed a tribal reserve by the Indian government in 1956, and travel within 3 nautical miles of it is restricted. It also maintains a continual armed guard to deter outsider invasion. It is not permitted even to take photographs. The number of the group is unknown, with estimates ranging from 15 to 500 people, with the majority falling between 50 and 200. In November 2018, John Allen Chow, a 26-year-old American trained and sent by All Nations, a Christian missionary organization based in the United States, traveled to North Sentinel Island with the goal of contacting and living among the Sentinelese in the hopes of converting them to Christianity. He failed to obtain the appropriate licenses to visit the island. He tried to sing praise songs to them and speak to them in Hausa, but they didn't respond, while other attempts at communication resulted in their breaking out laughing. Fishermen later witnessed the islanders dragging Chow's body, and they discovered him dead on the beach the next day. Number 8.
And they do all of this. No repercussions. No repercussions, bro. None. None. Especially after the government declared that, you know what I mean, stay away. They received no repercussions.
10. Asaro Mudman. The Asaro Tribe of Papua New Guinea's Mudmen, also known as the Holosa, wear a traditional outfit focused on mud masks. They dwell in the Eastern Highlands province of Papua New Guinea, near the settlement of Garoka. According to anthropologist Todd Otto, has many versions of the creation legend as there are sources. There are multiple oral history stories of the Asaro Mudmen's genesis. Legend has it that the Mudmen could not hide their faces because the inhabitants of Papua New Guinea believed the mud from the Asaro River was harmful. Rather than covering their faces with the purported poison, they created masks out of heated rocks and water from the waterfall. Number 17. Sur Tribe. Sur is a historical Pashtun tribe that mostly inhabits Afghanistan and Pakistan. They are said to be descended from the Khorids, a dynasty.
It always gets me to see that, bro. To see them do that.
That originated in Mandash, in the Ghor area of modern-day Afghanistan. Sher Shah Suri, the founder of the Suri Empire in India, was from the Sur Tribe. They controlled the Suri Empire from 1540 to 1555, when Humayun and the Persian army defeated them at the Battle of Sirhind and re-established the Mughal Empire. Sur people are now part of the Pashtun tribe structure and are associated with the Lodi Batani Confederacy. Suri are linked to the Gilji, another Batani tribal confederacy, although it is also thought that Suri is a Kakar Pashtun sub-tribe. The Afghan Suri tribe lived in the Ghor Mountains east of Fura, and its main cities were Ghor, Firuzi, and Bamiyan. The Pashtun tribes, also known as Afghan tribes in the past, are members of the Pashtun people, a significant Eastern Iranian ethnic group.
Every time I see y'all see me keep tucking my lip in, it bothers me.
Speak Pashto and observe the Pashtunwali code of behavior. They are predominantly located in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and they make up the world's biggest tribal structure, with about 49 million people and 350 to 400 tribes and clans. Number 16. The Great Sioux Nation. Native American tribes and First Nations peoples in North America are known as the Sioux or Oceti-Sakowin. The contemporary Sioux are divided into two primary groups based on language, Dakota and Lakota. The Santee Dakota resided near Lake Superior before the 17th century, with lands in what is now northern Minnesota and Wisconsin. They fished with boats, harvested wild rice, and hunted woodland creatures. Throughout the 1700s, wars with the Ojibwe forced the Dakota into southern Minnesota, where they settled as the Western Dakota and Teton. The Dakotas signed treaties with the United States in the 1800s, giving up most of their territory in Minnesota. The Dakota War in 1862 stemmed from the United States' failure to fulfill treaty payments on time, as well as a lack of food supply. The Dakota were exiled from Minnesota to many reservations in Nebraska, North and South Dakota, and Canada. Gender roles were well delineated throughout the Sioux tribes. The villagers' males were charged with acting as hunters and venturing beyond the community. The village's women were responsible of creating clothing and other products, as well as caring for and tending the house. Despite these roles, men and women shared authority in decision-making, and sexual preference were varied and permissible. Men who participated in traditional feminine tasks were referred to as watake, while women who abandoned their roles as mother or wife to become prostitutes were referred to as witkowi. Number 15. Yali Tribe. The Yali Tribe is most likely the smallest of the Papuan countries. However, some may yet be unknown. The Yalis were first discovered in 1961. They lived in the highlands, which are Papua's term for mountainous locations where people live. Inland places, particularly those near mountains, are the least accessible and consequently the most recently found. The Papuan Yali Tribe was one of the most feared cannibal tribes in New Guinea's western region, despite the fact that mature men are rarely taller than 150 centimeters and have never been headhunters. Their adversaries are pretty freaked out by them and keep a long distance. As a result, each valley's language evolved in its own way. The disparity was so pronounced that Yali tribal members think the valley's language are incomprehensible to one another. The Papuan Yalis, a clan of cannibals, was particularly feared because they completely annihilated their opponents. They supposedly not only ate the body but also ground the bones into dust and threw it into the valley. They did everything they could to keep the victim from returning. People from nearby villages were slain not just for vengeance, but also for meat. Yep, pretty scary, folks. Number 14. Arapaho Tribes. The Arapaho are a Native American tribe who lived on the plains of Colorado and Wyoming in the past. They were close allies of the Cheyenne Tribe as well as the Lakota and Dakota tribes. By the 1850s, two Arapaho tribes had emerged, the Northern Arapaho and the Southern Arapaho. The Northern Arapaho have resided on the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming with their Eastern Shoshones since 1878 and are federally recognized as the Arapaho Tribe of the Wind River Reservation. In Oklahoma, the Southern Arapaho coexist with the Southern Cheyenne. The federally recognized Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes are made up of their members. Men have always been in charge of hunting. Buffalo became the predominant food source once horses were introduced, with the flesh, organs, and blood all being devoured. Blood was either consumed or used to make pudding. Food preparation and hide dressing for clothes and bedding, saddles, and dwelling materials are historically done by women and two-spirits. Those who are known as two-spirits or third gender in current native cultures have traditionally held social and spiritual duties among the Arapaho. Anthropologist Alfred Kroeber wrote about male-bodied individuals who lived as women, the Haksuxin, who he said had the natural desire to become women. As they grew up, gradually became women and could marry men. He also stated that the Arapaho believed the Haksuxin's gender was a supernatural gift from birds or other animals, and that they had miraculous powers. Number 13. Shawnee Indians. The Shawnee are a native people of the northeastern woodlands who speak Algonquian. They resided in Pennsylvania in the 17th century, and they lived in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana in the 18th century, with some bands in Kentucky and Alabama. By the 1830 Indian Removal Act, they had been forcefully relocated to Missouri, Kansas, Texas, and finally Indian Territory, which became Oklahoma. The absentee Shawnee Tribe of Indians of Oklahoma, the Eastern Shawnee Tribe of Oklahoma, and the Shawnee Tribe are all federally recognized tribes with headquarters in Oklahoma. Tecumseh, a Shawnee chief, earned notoriety in the nearly 19th century for creating his eponymous confederacy to fight American expansion on Native American territory. Tecumseh's War was the name given to the ensuing conflict. Chief Tecumseh and American statesman William Henry Harrison were both minor players in the Battle of Fallen Timbers, which ended the Northwest Indian Wars in 1794. The Great Comet of 1811 appeared in March that year. Tecumseh informed the Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Muskogee, and other tribes that the Comet of March 1811 had foreshadowed his arrival. He also stated that the people will see a sign showing that he was sent by the Great Spirit. Number 12. Jimbos Skeleton Tribe. Amazing photographs have emerged of a mystery tribe that disguises itself as skeletons to terrorize their foes.
See, that's what I would fear, like being out, because listen, going back to that interview that I reacted to, they were like, they would go out on like safari runs at night, right? Imagine being out at night and you stumble upon this tribe right here, looking like this, fam. Like, imagine that, running up and stumble upon this, being in the wrong territory and having to deal with them and seeing them pull up like that. I just automatically think it's over, bro. It's over for me.
As they make their way to the Mount Hagen celebration, groups of men dressed as skeletons dance and move around with sticks in stunning photographs. Other startling images show the tribesmen perfecting their face paint with hand mirrors and smiling to the camera while smoking cigarettes. The incredible pictures were captured by amateur photographer Pong Theron Tantha Sindhu, who grew up in Thailand but now resides in Toronto, Canada. The images show the Jimbos skeleton tribe of Papua New Guinea. They disguise themselves as skeletons to terrify their opponents into believing they are not human, and possess supernatural abilities. The Jimbos tribe has mostly remained a mystery since first establishing contact with the Western world in 1934, making their skeleton body art all the more intriguing. Number 11. Kazakh Nomads. Western Mongolia's Kazakhs are one of the world's few remaining nomadic civilizations. The Kazakhs were formed in the 15th century by a mix of Turkic tribes that arrived in Transoxiana around the 8th century and Mongols who arrived in the 13th century. They mostly practice Sunni Islam and speak Kazakh, a Turkic language of the northwestern or Kipchak branch. At the turn of the century, Kazakhstan had about 10 million Kazakhs, and China had about 1,400,000, mostly in Xinjiang, with smaller populations in Uzbekistan, Russia, and Mongolia. After the Uzbeks, the Kazakhs are the second most populous Turkic-speaking population in Central Asia. The Kazakhs were traditionally pastoral nomads who lived in movable dome-shaped tents called gurs or yurts, made of dismountable timber frames covered in felt all year. The Kazakhs moved their animals, which included horses, sheep, goats, cattle, and a few camels, periodically to locate pasture. Number 10. Wahrani Tribe. The Wahrani, commonly known as the Wows, are an Ecuadorian indigenous people who live in the Amazonian region. They are distinct from other Ecuadorian ethnic groups. The alternative.
Let that set in for a second too as well, bro. To live in the Amazon. To live there. I'm super terrified of the Amazon because I know that place could kill you a million ways. You know what I mean? So to exist there amongst all of that and survive, you know what I mean? They talked about a story though one time of them showing up And again, I'm resorting back to that video I can't put up. Them showing up and a kid had just been bitten by an alligator. And they said when they pulled up, the mom was already mourning his death because, I mean, what could they do medically wise? So he was like, thank goodness they were there. They were able to get him, load him up, and he ended up with like a shattered arm and leg, but he was able to survive it. They were already mourning his death because they were, you know what I mean, unable to perform a whole lot of medical attention to him. So, you know, to think how much they've survived in the Amazon, bro, just is a testament to some of these tribes.
The term Aka is a derogatory exonym used by nearby Quechua indigenous and widely adopted by Spanish speakers. Aka is a Quechua word that means savage. They number around 4,000 people and speak the Wahrani language, which is a linguistic anomaly that is not connected to any other language. Their original territories are around 50 miles south of El Coca, between the Kiawah and Napo rivers. Oil prospecting and illegal logging are threatening these homelands, which are around 120 miles wide and 75 to 100 miles long from north to south. The Wahrani were able to defend their culture and territories from both indigenous adversaries and invaders in the past. They have transitioned from a hunting and gathering civilization to mostly living in permanent forest communities during the previous 40 years. 5 communities, including the Tagari, Uiter, Omanane, and 2 Taromanane tribes, have refused any interaction with the outside world and are continuing to retreat into increasingly remote places. Number 9. Cheyenne Tribe. The Cheyenne tribe used to include the Northern Cheyenne. The tribe mostly dwelt in what is now Minnesota before relocating to Dakota land. They were a hard-working, nomadic people who had a great understanding of the respect for the land. Buffalo and other animals they hunted were used to make clothing, shelter, bags, and tools. Plants and leaves were collected for food and medicinal. The Northern and Southern Cheyenne tribes divided around 1825, with the Northern Cheyenne relocating to eastern Wyoming. For decades, the Northern Cheyenne fought the United States Army in violent engagements in what is now Wyoming and Montana. Hundreds of troops were slaughtered in what became known as the Sand Creek Massacre. In the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876, the Northern Cheyenne joined forces with other tribes to help defeat U.S. soldiers headed by General George Custer. There were other conflicts after that. The Tongue River Reservation, subsequently renamed the Northern Cheyenne Indian Reservation, was formed in 1884. St. Labra Catholic Indian Boarding School opened in Ashland, Montana the same year. Despite their numerous struggles, the Northern Cheyenne are proud of their history and legacy. They use storytelling, painting, singing, drumming, and dance to pass on the traditions of the past to today's kids. Number 8. Garoka Tribe. The Garoka Tribe of Papua New Guinea is well known around the world for its long-standing customs. The Garoka males wear exquisite headdresses made of parrot and birds of paradise feathers. The most costly adornments are those fashioned of seashells. They are a symbol of riches and success. Before the wedding, a shell necklace is frequently given to a native girl by her prospective husband. The practice of wearing shell jewelry stretches back hundreds of years, when little pieces of pearl were used in place of money. Because of no fault of their own, the Garoka people were cut off from the rest of the world. Their isolation is due to the continuance of tribal conflicts and difficult environmental circumstances. Their style of life is not dissimilar to that of regular people. The tribe is made up of households, each with its own set of obligations. The most senior representative is regarded as the family's leader. The Garoka tribe now resides on the area of the same named province, a well-known tribal gathering and cultural festival in Papua New Guinea, which draws a large number of tourists, is held here every year on September 16th. It's the Garoka Show, where a variety of tribes gather to perform music, dancing, and culture. The 3-day event is guaranteed to appeal to those interested in learning more about the tribe's customs. Visitors to the Garoka province can tour historic coffee farms and factories, as well as a fascinating museum. Number 7. Korobo Tribe.
And you know another thing I'm thinking about while watching this entire thing? No social media, video games, nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like none of this stuff that we deal with or we're accustomed to or that we can't go without, they've gone without and without a problem. You know what I mean? I often think about that, you know? Take some of the stuff that we have away and how would we fare?
The Korobo, sometimes known as Clubber Indians due to their use of battle clubs, dwell in the Havari Valley, near the junction of the Itu and Iroquois rivers. The majority of the population, around 200 individuals, continues to live in seclusion, migrating between the rivers Itu, Quarry, and Bronco. After several tries, outsiders were able to reach a small number of Korobo Indians in 1996. The Korobo began visiting Métis Indian settlements and encampments in the jungle after their meeting. On the lower Itu, the group is now split into two settlements. The Korobo are among the last people on Earth who live in near isolation from contemporary culture, despite violent encounters with the surrounding villages on multiple occasions. They are popularly referred to as Korobo, despite the fact that this is not their own name. In actuality, Korobo is a derogatory, pejorative term coined by a former enemy tribe and then embraced by the outside world as a tribal identifier. They are commonly referred to as caceteros by locals, a term that a French journalist mistranslated as head smashers due to its closeness to the French phrase cacetet. Cacetero, on the other hand, just means clubber or man with a club, referring to their weaponry, much as the nearby isolated people known as flecheros are simply archers, referring to the weapons they employ as well. Number 6. Pawnee Tribe. The Pawnee Nation of Oklahoma has a rich and illustrious history that dates back over 700 years. The Pawnee Tribe inhabited the region around the North Platte River in Nebraska in the early 1800s, with over 60.
They look like they mean business. You understand what I'm saying?
1,000 people. The Chowie, Grand, the Kitkahaki, Republican, and Pitawarada, Tapage, and the Skitty, Wolf, were the four bands that made up the tribe at the time. The Pawnees, who were classed as the friendly tribe by the US government, were brave and tenacious warriors. Some Pawnee warrior conflicts for the preservation of lives, land, and goods were legendary. Crooked Hand and the Skitty Band, for example, rose from his bed to gather the elderly men, women, and children and lead the fight to protect their land. Despite being outmanned 2-1, they defeated a stronger armed foe and drove him away. To date, the Pawnees have participated in every military fight in defense of American liberty, beginning with the Pawnee Scouts, who served throughout the Indian Wars. On October 15, 2011, a ceremony was conducted to commemorate the U.S. Army's Bravo/Pawnee Company 486th Civil War Affairs BN's decision to change their name to represent this illustrious Pawnee legacy. Today, there are approximately 3,200 tribal enrolled members, and Pawnees may be found in various parts of the United States as well as other nations, working in a variety of fields. Pawnees are extremely proud of their ancestors. Their tribal religion, which is rich in myth, symbolism, and intricate ceremonies, has left an indelible mark on history. Number 5. Comanche. The Comanche are a Native American tribe from the present-day United States Southern Plains. Today, the Comanche people are members of the federally recognized Comanche Nation, based in Lawton, Oklahoma. The Comanche language belongs to the Uto-Aztecan family of Numic languages. It was once a Shoshone dialect, but it split off and developed its own language. The Comanche were formerly members of the Great Basin Shoshone people. Comanche people inhabited throughout much of what is now northwestern Texas, as well as surrounding territories in eastern Mexico, southeastern Colorado, southwestern Kansas, western Oklahoma, and northern Chihuahua in the 18th and 19th centuries. Comancheria was the name given to the historical area by Spanish colonists and subsequently Mexicans. Comanche people lived in a nomadic horse culture and hunted bison in the 18th and 19th centuries. They traded with surrounding Native Americans as well as as merchants and settlers from Spain, France, and the United States. The Comanche fought war against and plundered the towns of neighboring Native American tribes when European Americans encroached on their area. During wartime, they captured prisoners from neighboring tribes and used them as slaves, sold them to Spanish and, later, Mexican immigrants, or adopted them into their tribe. Thousands of prisoners adapted into Comanche society after raids against Spanish, Mexican, and American settlements. Most Comanche were forced to reside on reservations in Indian Territory by the 1860s and 1870s after being decimated by European illnesses, fighting, and European encroachment on Comanche area. Number 4. Maori People. The Maori, who were originally Polynesians who arrived in New Zealand during the 11th and 13th centuries, are recognized for their unique warrior culture. The Maori people of the past were...
They automatically make me think of rugby. The way they were doing that, what was the haka? It looked like, it sort of resembled that, what they started off doing. It just made me think of rugby.
Separated into violent tribal groupings, each marked with its own armament and fighting style, which are still present today. The Maori combat culture has earned them a reputation as some of the most fearsome warriors in the South Pacific throughout history. The Maori were among the most dangerous warriors the British encountered during their advances. They possessed a strong combat code and a lengthy history of warfare. They were schooled in the skills of combat from an early age, learning how to use a variety of distinctive weaponry, fighting methods, and the now famous haka dance to safeguard their...
See, I told y'all that's what it reminded me of. Dang, I knew that looked familiar, bro, but I didn't think that was associated with that, though. That's crazy.
Tribes, the Maori erected defensive fortifications on key locations. The Maori tribe's guerrilla warfare was a heritage of devotion to the struggle that was shared by many New Zealand tribes. Warriors were dispatched in troops known as hapas when the battle season began. A hapu might have anything from 100 to 140 warriors. Women were also educated in the techniques of combat, therefore the Maori war party was not exclusively made up of men. A hapu was commanded by a war chief whose primary goal was to inspire his soldiers to battle. The war chief of a hapu was supposed to fight alongside the others, and if he perished, the war party was expected to retreat. Number 3. Kiawah. The Kiawah are a Native American tribe and an indigenous people of the United States Great Plains. In the 17th and 18th centuries, they traveled southward from western Montana into Colorado's Rocky Mountains and then into the southern plains by the early 19th century. The Kiawah were relocated to a reservation in southeastern Oklahoma in 1867. They are now known as the Kiawah Indian Tribe of Oklahoma by the federal government. There were 12,000 members as of 2011. The Tanoan language family's Kiawah language, Kaija, is in risk of extinction with only 20 speakers as of 2012. The Kiawah were a warrior nation, as were other Plains Indians. They battled foes from both within and without their borders on a regular basis. Even among Plains Indians, the Kiawah were known for their long-distance raids, which included incursions as far south as Mexico and as far north as the northern prairies. Almost majority of the fighting was done while mounted on horse. To the north and west of Kiowa land, the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Navajo, Ute, and occasionally Lakota are enemies. They battled with the Pawnee, Osage, Kickapoo, Ka, Caddo, Wichita, and Sac and Fox tribes east of Kiowa land. To the south, they battled the Lipan, Apache, Mescalero Apache, Chiricahua Apache, known as the people of the turned-up moccasins by the Kiowa, and Tonkawa. During the Indian removal period, the Cherokee, Choctaw, Muskogee, and Chickasaw were among the Indian tribes relocated to Indian Territory from the American South and East, including the Cherokee, Choctaw, Muskogee, and Chickasaw. Eastern tribes discovered that Indian Territory, where they had been dispatched, was already populated by Plains Indians, namely the Kiowa and Comanche. Later, the Cheyenne and Arapaho would forge a formidable alliance with the Kiowa, the Comanche, and the Plains Apache to battle invading settlers and U.S. soldiers, as well as Mexicans and the Mexican Army. Number 2. Mohawk Tribe. The Mohawk Tribe was the fiercest and most warlike of the strong Iroquois Confederacy's eastern components. They resided along the Mohawk River in upstate New York, from southern Quebec to eastern Ontario, and were known as the Keepers of the Eastern Door by the Iroquois Confederacy. The Mohawk were one of the most dreaded native Indian tribes, and their adversaries feared them because of their vicious and ruthless warfare. The Mohawk Tribe was a hunting, fishing, and agricultural people that used their elm bark boats to travel widely along the Mohawk and Hudson rivers on hunting, trading, and war trips. Because of their violent methods and savage treatment of prisoners, the warlike Mohawk were feared across the region. The Constitution of the Iroquois Confederacy was formed by the Daganoweda and Hiawatha to unite the Iroquoian tribes and put an end to internal tribal conflict and cannibalism. The Iroquois Confederacy tribes waged war against all of their neighbors until they were all vanquished. The Dutch, Swedish, French, and British were among the first Europeans to engage in regular fur trading with the Mohawk tribe. During the protracted French and Indian Wars, the Mohawk joined with the British against the French. Most Mohawks moved to Canada after the American Revolution, and the great majority of them still live there now. Number 1.
Wow.
Apache People. The Apache is a group of North American Indians that played prominently in the history of the Southwest during the second half of the 19th century under such leaders as Cochise, Mangas, Coloradas, Geronimo, and Victorio. Their name is most likely derived from a Spanish transcription of the Zuni word Apache, which means enemy. Prior to Spanish invasion, the Apache realm included what is now east central and southeastern Arizona, southeastern Colorado, southwestern and eastern New Mexico, and western Texas in the United States, as well as northern Chihuahua and Sonora states in Mexico. The ancestral Apache, on the other hand, did not likely arrive in the Southwest until at least 1100 CE. The Apachean languages are definitely a subset of the Athabascan language family, and all other Athabascan-speaking tribes were originally situated in what is now Western Canada, with the exception of the Navajo. Semi-sedentary Plains Apache farmers were residing near the Dismal River in what is now Kansas as recently as 1700, despite the Apaches' final decision to embrace a nomadic lifestyle reliant mainly on horse transportation. When the horse and gun markets collided in the Central Plains about 1750, traditionally nomadic groups like the Comanche began to engage in guerrilla raids. The Plains Apache that remained were heavily pressed and fled to the south and west, despite being one of the most ferocious groups on Mexico's and America's colonial frontiers, and maybe because of their faith in their own military might, the Apache first tried to make friends with the Spanish, Mexicans, and Americans. What do you think of life in one of these amazing tribes? Should we always leave other people alone to their own way of life, or does everyone just need to accept Starbucks and Instagram like the rest?
Starbucks and Instagram. You know what? Watching this video, right, and culturing ourselves like this with seeing these tribes, it takes me back to that show I told y'all I was watching on Netflix. I think the title of it is Alone, where they're out there living wherever they place them at, and they gotta survive out there, and you gotta, you know what I mean, get your own food. You gotta either hunt or fish, figure it out, make sure you got your own shelter, you gotta build it up or whatever, figure out how to get fire. You're allowed a few elements, but not much, so you gotta strategically think what you're taking. And then to see that, and then see this video, it's like, man, I'm pitiful. You know what I mean? I can't speak for nobody else but myself, but I'm like, man, I couldn't make it a few days. You know what I'm saying? Like, making it a few days, and to watch them, they reside there. So they have means and ways and figured out different things. And man, just to think that is just to see that and see that perspective now after watching different shows and stuff, just gives me a different level of respect for them. So shout outs and salute to all the tribes, man. But y'all get at me in the comment section. Let me know what you thought of this video. People of the tribe violate all the laws of physics, man, which it had a different title when the video started, which was strange, by the way, but I don't understand it. It is what it is. So Until next reaction, I'm going. Y'all let me know how you feel. Leave a like, share the video, subscribe, and stick around and stay tuned. Until next one, I'm going. Peace.